Hey, what's up, everybody? Chris over here. I am the head system trader here at MacroOps, and we're going to do the weekly market overview here um, at the beginning of the trading week. So let's get right into it. This is the just I guess we had our first week in October. So beginning of Q2 is where we're starting right here. So let me go to yeah, let's get on it. So let's start with the big picture here of the S&P 500. What we're seeing, this is a weekly S&P 500, the cash index. Okay, from basically from the April lows to the highs. So almost so that's about 2,000 points. So 4,800 up to 6,750 or so. That is that's great. We at Macro Ops, we bought in this general area over here. Um, so the let me take a moment to explain how here at Macro Ops how we like to buy dips. You know, the old phrase buy the dip. BTFD or whatever it is. And you know, people get like really excited about buying dips and boisterous and confident. But there's the reality of buying a dip is it's, in my opinion, it's you know that you might have a reason, a valuation reason, or a long-term belief. What I want to do is I want price to show me that it's heading. Like I want things to um basically be put into a position that if I'm wrong, I'm wrong for a, you know, a 1R, like let's call it 1% risk. In our case, it was like a 50 basis points, so a 0.5% risk of the portfolio. Uh, and if I'm right, it's going to return, you know, 4, 5, 10, 20x what I risked. And that's what happened with this trade. So rather than just jumping in here and buying as it was going down, we waited for it to go down, kind of reverse, and then make another attempt down. And when that failed, that to me was the opportunity. Now, more interestingly, across the bottom here, we have this thing called the New York Stock Exchange Advancing Issues. It's a 10-week simple moving average of those issues of the advancing issues. And so it kind of gives you an idea of the, you know, extent of a sell-off. Is it a normal sell-off? Is it an extreme sell? Is it a crash? And then I use it to help give me a guidance of, okay, we're very much overdone and we should look to reverse. I've used this numerous times over the years. You can see in the April sell-off. You can see back in October 2022. You can see it during the March 2020, the Q4 2018. It got to these extreme crash levels, and anytime we got to those levels, it ended up being you know, let's try to like line them up here. It ended up being a really good buy opportunity. This would have been, you know, these are in this gray area is where I like to be. Um, you know, the world people are getting really worried about the market, and you know, I like to be buying in this area when everything else is going good. Like I'm not too worried about those here. When it gets below there and it starts going, this is when I'm like, you know, completely in cash looking for either I'm short or I'm looking for a reversal to get long. So earlier in August, we had, you know, a couple weeks of just, you know, people were really kind of nervous. They were calling the tops. Everything was you know, a lot of people were pretty worried about it. From our end, I didn't see any reason that we would be exiting any of our positions. So while we did lighten our positions, our long positions in the summertime, June, July period, we re-added our positions in this period and we continue to ride out. So right now, first of all, I see no excess. So no upside excess in the market. So I'm not worried about a major market top or, you know, even an aggressive market top here, a market top at all. I'm more looking for the trend to continue. Like, you can see that this has happened, it generally happens more than it doesn't. So for the handful of times that it doesn't happen, it pretty much turns around on a dime and continues higher. Um, Especially post global financial crisis and 2020, where the financial system was kind of rebuilt. So that's one of the big tailwinds into the market. Another thing I'm going to look at, actually, we'll look at this towards the end of the conversation. That's Bitcoin. Let's get into our current portfolio. We are long. This is Ethereum here. We're long Ethereum, Bitcoin, gold, silver, copper. I mean, just look at the performance on these metals. Gold has just been in a, from 2,600 to almost 4,000 on the year. Let's take a look at similar sort of thing on so 30 to almost 50 on silver. Copper has took the largest single dip, like a 25% dip in a single day on copper. Uh, and we got long somewhere down the 4.5 range. I don't have the actual price, and it's gone up pretty good here. Again, long Bitcoin, we hit all-time highs over the weekend. This is the futures, so we can just take a look at what happened over the weekend, and you can see that it did in fact go to 125,725 on I'm not sure which exchange that is. It's kind of the uniqueness about Bitcoin is it trades on so many different exchanges. And then we've been long. S&P was where we got we got long in the 5,300 area. That's almost up to 6,800. We added NASDAQs, continuing to re-add around the 24,000 area. We got up to 25,000. And then there's, which this, I really don't have much to, actually, let me go to the one that I do. Oops. So I'm long, whoops. I am long the Mexican peso, which is very much looks like gold, silver, NASDAQ, S&P, Bitcoin, Ethereum. They all kind of look very much similar. All of our trend trades right now are very similar to one another, which is an interesting thing. Alex does have us in the Eurobor, Euro stocks, and the Japanese yen on our futures portfolio. So I'm not going to cover the equity side of things other than there's a couple of equity positions that I do have. Brandon and Alex really manage that book. Brandon to a very large extent and is very heavily into metals, mining, energy. And I mean, looking at metals, you can see why he's there. So let's take a look sector by sector. Well, not sector, but I got asset class by asset class. And we can see we have the Russell up there testing the highs. We've got S&P all-time highs, Dow all-time highs, NASDAQ all-time highs. What I do have caution in is this bottom indicator, the SQN indicator, is in the bull volatile. So I am looking for a potential, pullback. We could have a 5 to 10% pullback in the S&P, NASDAQ, Dow. Let's not talk about Russell because that's a separate issue. But the major, the large cap indices of the U.S. equity market are, as far as price action goes, heading higher, but nothing really is signaling anything more than a minor reversal based on our our analysis over here. When we take a look at the interest rates, 2-year, 5-year, 10-year, 30-year, Interestingly enough, the 30-year, if we look at relative to the others, you can see that the 30-year, the long bond, the longest duration, is held up the strongest relative to the 10, the 5, and the 2. The 10, the 5, and 2 got a little bit weaker. And I'm measuring that in a relative basis to these Keltner channels here. Um, Not a huge pullback, but relative to each other, the strength is in the long bond. So I would be, we're starting to see some trend coming from that low that we had in Q2, whatever the tariff time frame of the year. We've rates have dropped on the long bond, on the long duration products, where the price of the bonds have gone higher. So that's of note. That's not making me jump into any bond trade or make any changes aggressively in either case. It's just something to be aware of. Let's go to currencies. Strongest currency we have, and we are long, is the Mexican peso. We attempted to be long Canadian dollars. We got stopped out. We were long on the Kiwi. We nailed it exactly to its high, and it broke down. Really, a whole lot of indecision everywhere, other than Canadian dollar continues to grind lower. That was a major short position for us in 2024. And who knows, it's starting to look weaker compared to the others again. Mexican peso, man. Um, I don't really have a a strong opinion to why the Mexican peso is the strongest of our FX pairs. I'm just in him. That's something for Alex and the rest of the team to be more involved in. Off to metals, we've got gold, copper, platinum, silver, all at these massive highs. We're long 3 out of the 4 metals. And then on the right-hand side, we've got crude, RBOB, Natty, and Brent, none of which look extremely bullish. Whatever strength they had going into last week got dumped pretty hard. I wonder if it might have been like the rumor of Hamas and Israel ceasefire, maybe. Going into ags, we were short soybean futures. We took our profit, and it's pretty much setting up for another reversal to the upside. We'll keep an eye on potentially getting long soybeans this week. I will potentially be getting long soybeans this week if we can get this to work here. Guess not. I'll keep my eye on that. Everything else looks to be just pretty calm. Getting into lumber, coffee, cocoa, sugar, cotton. Nothing super interesting over here either for me. Cocoa has come back quite a bit off that 12,000 high. It's down to 6,300 or so. So and in the neutral territory. So you could find yourself in a mean reversion trading range on that. Coffee, I've been eyeballing to get long. I don't exactly have a strong position or stance on coffee at this point in time, but I will say this is one I'm keeping my eye on. As we head into, I want to take a look at like price action fragility, and that's what this represents here. This oscillator we see it measures the rate of change of that. So when it goes from one market regime, which is the SQN on the bottom, when it goes from one to another quickly, you'll get to extreme levels. We got to extreme levels on the downside. This is the S&P 500. We got to extreme levels on the upside, and it calmed down. So when I see extremes, it helps me paint a picture. When we see an extreme downside move, it's much easier to buy. When I see an extreme upside move, I'm not really too worried about it. I love to see price going higher while the rate of change slows down dramatically, and that's what we're seeing right here. So, we can take a look at Nasdaq. Um, this is the Dow. Let's take a look at Russell. Russell's held up its strength a lot on the rate of change, more so than any other. But we haven't really put in any new all-time highs. Price, yeah, it's kind of back, but Russell has not taken over control. The small caps has not really taken over control. So I'm not too excited, too interested about that. What I want to look at is gold. Okay. Gold is back up in the high rate of change. We had a great consolidation for um what for 5 months on gold, and it's broken out again. That tells me, we are back into the bull volatile, so we might find ourselves into a place where a natural breathing point will be 4,000, of course, because it's a big round number. Silver, similar. Copper, on the other hand, that's going to be an interesting one. Um, has not recovered very quickly at all. So there's a lot of good opportunity for copper to get back up to those levels. Let's take a look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin at all time, in fact, went to all time highs over the weekend in the spot index or the spot markets, while we are down at a basically balanced level on Bitcoin. Um, I believe we have the potential for Bitcoin to continue to move much higher from here. For those of you who are following in the crypto momentum system, Bitcoin is running the show. Like, there's no reason for us to be leaving Bitcoin and do anything else. We do have some signals on some of the other sectors, like indexes, but and layer ones. But Bitcoin continues to lead. We spent about 4 months going sideways on Bitcoin, which, if we go back to gold, we can see gold did the same sort of thing, went sideways for about, so when was it? So April through August. So 4 or 5 months of sideways action and then took off. Bitcoin, so far, we're looking at about 4 months of sideways action. And so what I've seen typically happen is Bitcoin follows gold. So I'm expecting another move. In fact, let's kind of see if we can guess what the move would be like. We can measure this range from here to here. That's about a 18% move. And then right now, that's about a 10% move. So let's say a 20% move in that first little bit, and then half of it so far. So this would be, take a measurement from here to here to the down move, 32%. So we would expect a 16%, relatively speaking, up move here. There we go. And let's go here. So let's measure what 16% from the breakout would be. So 150,000 on Bitcoin. Look, I'm not calling 150,000 Bitcoin. I'm not saying that this is, great technical analysis or anything like that. The next natural stopping point for Bitcoin is 150,000. It's just that big round number, much like 4,000 is that big round number stopping point on gold. Whether it stops there or not or continues on is nobody's or everybody's guess. But Bitcoin typically outperforms gold, 2 to 1, 4 to 1, in a different area. Gold leads. Gold's market cap, trillions of dollars of market cap. Bitcoin is a much smaller market cap. But it does continue to take capital in, and it does seem to be setting up. We are in the neutral bull quiet market regime. So we actually have quite the opportunity to run higher here. 150,000, probably, give or take, could go to 148, could 151, could go 149,999 exactly. You know what I mean? Like it's not, that part is not for precision. It's just to ballpark it. That's where I would be expecting to see Bitcoin move. And we are long through IBIT. I believe it's IBIT. Yeah, IBIT. So let's kind of measure whoops. Yeah, let's just measure yeah, IBIT. So that's 12. So we would expect a move 6, maybe like 75. I think 75, that's about right with the pricing of IBIT and how Bitcoin is traded. So another 10% move maybe on price, 6 to 10% move on the ETF, whereas Big Daddy Bitcoin itself did it. And yeah, we are already starting to, we've already broken out of that. Start looking at where this goes higher from here. Finally, the last few positions, we are long so I can only speak for my positions here. I can't really speak for the other positions taken, but Tesla, we got long down in the 350 area, somewhere around there, 341, I believe. I don't see it on my list of assets that they have it in the other area, I believe. Long Tesla from 340, long Apple from 240, and then long from like 220 on Cloudflare. These positions are my there's Tesla. Okay, I see them. Tesla, Apple, and Cloudflare are my positions. I'm looking at about 600 on Tesla, probably in the 280s on Apple is our next level up. And Cloudflare is probably going to be one of those that there is no end to the hold in that position. That's basically what I'm looking at. Finally, to wrap this thing up, one thing I like to do, I use market profiles. So the TPO, time price opportunity, and then the volume profile. So on the left-hand side, each one of these, just kind of like spread it out. On the left-hand side, this colorful thing, each period of that represents time. Each block is 1 30-minute block of time traded at that price. And so this is a week. For the entire week, Bitcoin has traded from 111,000 to 125,000, give or take. This is a conglomerate of the Bitcoin perpetual futures on Binance, on Bybit, the Bitcoin futures CME. There is, I've got two other, I believe, spot Bitcoin markets. So the other two largest spot Bitcoin markets. So it's kind of a conglomerate of all of those. And so that's where we can see where you can see where there's gaps in price. So on the left-hand side, what we're looking at on this one, if I can get this to scroll, it takes a minute. We can see that from on whatever day it was, it shot up from 115 to 116 pretty much and just went straight. As far as spending time at those levels, it did not do it. But that is one of the most highly traded periods of time. So that rocket ship that launched at 115 to 116,000 is supportive of this further move. And 122 is our point of control. So if I, bring it back, we can kind of take a look at what it looks like for the past number of weeks. We can see that we've spent from 107 to 125. We've spent the last 3 weeks in that general area. And then if we take a look from October of 2024, from 75,000 to 125,000, we've spent an entire year in this area with a lot of consolidation. So that being said, we have some potential support if we break 100,000 down into this 98,000 to take a look at. maybe trading if we want to do another dip. On the upside, again, 150,000 is my next term target, and this is the thing that I'm most involved in trading. That's what we got for this week. That's what I got for this week. Mostly looking at a potential long in soybeans. Uh, if we get a strong, now this is kind of some tactics. If we get a really strong day on S&P or NASDAQ, Monday, Tuesday, something like that, I would expect a pullback. On that pullback is when I would be looking to buy. If we have a pullback Monday, this week, I want to see what the price action is to buy it. So I have a long bias on the indices. I have a long bias on Bitcoin specifically. On the altcoins, I don't have much of a bias right now. If Bitcoin just stalls right here and doesn't head off to that 150 level, then yes, I would have an interest in looking at altcoins. But mostly at this point, we're just looking, for Bitcoin leadership, continues to lead. It's almost to the point where cryptocurrencies are their own asset class. Bitcoin is its own asset class, closer to gold. And then, equities and everything else is their own asset class. So we might be moving into that place. The thing about it is correlations, align and then break over time. So we have to just keep our eye on that, see when the correlations are aligning, play the game. When they're breaking, play the game. As far as let's see, currencies, I really don't have anything to do. Mexican peso is the only thing I'm really in. Not super interested in any other currencies. Not super interested in any of the rates right now. One thing I would like to see, and probably what I'm like, one thing I am expecting is Apple to start taking more of the Mag 7 leadership and seeing where, like Tesla and Apple, you can see they've been kind of lagging this last year on the leadership. I'm expecting a move into those, especially as we head into the latter part of the year. I also expect if Mag 7 just kind of calms down and goes sideways, I would expect a shift into some of the more speculative names in tech. If Mag 7 drops hard, I would expect that to get bought and ramped into the end of the year close. If it stays up high, that's and doesn't really do much again, that's kind of where I would expect things to start rotating away. So we'll update it later this week. I'm going to do a Bitcoin crypto one video this week. Keep in mind 150,000 Bitcoin. That's it for today. Have a great weekend, everybody. Love you all.